how old money elites preserve their wealth and how you can do exactly the same thing. In this video, we're going to talk about how the old money elites and the billionaires all use this one certain structure to preserve their wealth and create a lasting legacy, but more importantly, how you can use exactly the same structure for your family. All right, I'm Chohan, founder of TogetherCFO. Let's get into it. So let's start with the IRS. They often incentivize us to perform certain activities, right? So an example of this can be to go buy a vehicle and get a huge write-off through accelerated depreciation, you get 100% off. Then the next year you get 80, 60, 40, and so on as the years go on. Now recently that's about to change. So this is an example of how the government will incentivize you to do something or take an action and give you an incentive for that action. Then they'll go and change the goalpost. We've seen this time and time again, more recently with conservation easements, where they had this great loophole where you can go do a conservation easement and get a write-off, get a huge write-off. People then did that in their droves, both correctly, and then a lot of people abused it as well. They went back and changed the rules and then audited everyone and then fined them. So it's very tricky when you're dealing with loophole because they're always changing and there's so many of them, you got to keep on top of it. The elites don't use loopholes. They use a completely different structure. They use foundations and trusts, right? So the reason they do that is because the benefits of them are tremendous. And more importantly, you retain control. Stick around till the end. We're going to go through a lot of examples on this. But generally speaking, you can get down to a 1.39%. That's right, I'll say it again. A 1.39% tax rate by using the right type of foundation. Now, there's multiple types of foundations. There's public charities, there's private charities, 501c3s, tax exempt. There's a whole laundry list of them, and it gets super complicated. We're not going to get into the detail in this one. We're just keeping it big picture. We're helping you understand what a private foundation is, the purposes of a private foundation, but then more importantly, stick around till the end because we're going to show you how you can use a private foundation for your family in your own situation. So you've got to start with what is the purpose of a foundation. Now it can be multiple things. It can be for scientific research, it can be for education, it can be to make a social impact in your community, it can be to help underserved communities. There's no right or wrong thing here. The list is endless. So if you wanted to create a foundation to go help underprivileged children learn to read and write, or get them fresh water, or do an eye surgery, or whatever that is for you, perfectly fine. You just have to write your purpose, your mission statement, your intent of why you've created this foundation all in those bylaws when you submit it to the IRS. Now let's get into how the old money elites and the billionaires use foundations, because it's going to be very different to the way you and I use them. If we look at some of the billionaires that have these types of foundations, we can look at Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, Zuckerberg, Bezos. They all have these foundations in place. Let's start with Bill Gates as an example. Bill Gates has got tens of billions of dollars in his foundation. He's going to have a completely different intent and purpose and use of that than you are. There's a whole list of different ways you can use a foundation. You get tremendous tax benefits from having a foundation. You could get anywhere from, on the low end, a 30% tax deduction up to 100% tax deduction, just depending on the way you're structured and what is going on. So as an example, on a personal return, your AGI, you get 30% of that. You could get 60% if you were donating to a DAF, a donor advised fund, or on the other side, if you had a complex trust, then you could donate up to 100% into a private foundation. It varies, and there's a whole scale depending on how you're structured. If you want more information on that, set up a call with our team and we'll explain how it all works for you. But for now, you just need to know that you can have a significant tax deduction by donating to your own private foundation. The beauty about a private foundation compared to some other structures is that there is no requirement on when those funds have to be donated to a charity or used. The more important thing is you retain complete control of that foundation. So you can donate from yourself to your foundation and keep control of that. Have you ever heard of the 99% giving pledge? Where all these billionaires have signed up to donate 99% of their wealth to foundation. And guess whose foundation that is? That's right, you guessed it. It's their own foundation. So they are donating from this side, taking the tax deduction, and they are receiving it in this side, and they are controlling all of those same funds. But they're doing it all by the letter of the law, and it's all perfectly legal. So why can't you do the same thing? The answer is you can. You just need to have a strategic enough team supporting you to do that. So that's the tax benefits out the way with. There's a lot of actual real good cases for this as well. So you can help your local community, the causes that are very close, near and dear to your heart, whether that's a religious purpose, whether it's scientific, whether it's education, it doesn't matter. Whatever is close to you and your family, this is a great way for you to help better your community by creating a foundation. It's a great way to preserve wealth and safeguard against inflation. This is the real reason why the elites use this, because they can issue grants, issue donations, issue investments that they actually get back, and it's all done at a super low rate. So right now that rate is at 1.4%. It used to fluctuate between 1 and 2%, but new rules came out just to keep it consistent and easy to calculate. Now, it's not all about tax savings. The social capital and goodwill you get from having a foundation is also really important, because you're going to better your community. It's going to give you a lot of goodwill with that community, whether that's at the church or at the synagogue or mosque or wherever you choose to donate. So it's really important that you start with the purpose and the mission, and then look at the benefits that come along with that. Wrap it all together, and then this is how you can create a family legacy, because you then set that in place for future generations to help understand what the philosophy, what the mindset is of the family, how you give, how you come together, and you keep each other close. Studies show that over 88% is totally dissipated by the third generation. So that would be your grandkids. If you're the wealth accumulator in your family, by the time you have your grandkids, if you don't keep them together and if you don't transfer that intelligence down to them in the correct way, 88% of the time they are going to spend all of your money and it's all gone. So having a foundation can help really bridge that gap of education and mindset to the future generations as well. Let's look at a couple of examples of elite families such as the Vanderbilts, the Astors, the Rockefellers. I'm sure those are all names that you've heard of before. And if you just think back to a university, a library, a museum, all these things that these families have created, and they put their names on the side of the wall or on a wing somewhere because that's their lasting legacy. Now, if you happen to come from one of those families and you were applying to that type of university, let's say, there's a high likelihood that you're going to get in because of your last name. So this is a multi-generational legacy that you're creating. But along with that, you're teaching the future generations the mindset of the family. When you come together, when you meet, you transfer that knowledge down. So this really becomes a multifaceted approach for wealth preservation in a very low tax environment. So it's a win-win all around. Your community benefits, you benefit, your family grows, you keep stronger for longer. There's really very few downsides to this. Yes, there's a lot of administration, there's very specific rules, so you've got to keep that in mind as well. There is a 5% expenditure rule, which we won't get into the detail of that, but generally it means you have to expend at least 5% of the value of the assets within the trust every single year. Then that is twofold, because that includes donations and it includes operating expenses, payroll, rents, and things like that. So it can also be pushed and accumulated. There's ways to deal with that. We'll cover that on a different video, but just know that there is a lot of regulations in order to stay compliant, because the IRS issues you a tax exempt status. You've got to make sure you always stay within the rules. If you've found any value from this video, please remember to like, comment, and share. Hit the subscribe button. We'll keep these coming for you. Write us a comment. Let us know what you'd like future videos to be on. We'll cover all those topics. I'm Casey Chohan, founder of TogetherCFO. Thanks so much.